Hello everyone, welcome back to another Star Wars Destiny video. Today a lot of new cards for Way of the Force were leaked. These are all up in an imager gallery. I'll leave a link in the description so you can check the gallery out for yourself. I'm just going to go down the line here, looking at each card. I'm going to give my thoughts on them. So first up here we have the CR2 Heavy Blaster, Yellow Hero Upgrade Weapon, 3 resources, 2 range damage, plus 3 range damage, shield, resource, special, and blank. And special, deal 2 damage to a character or 4 damage instead if an opponent has no dice in their pool. So we have 3 damage sides here. I would have liked a little more if that wasn't a modified side. But again, we have a 2, a 3, and the special, which is going to do 2 at the least, and at the max, it's going to deal 4. So if you're playing really good dice mitigation, and you're able to empty your opponent's dice pool, maybe they resolve a couple, but you remove a bunch more of them, the special will do 2 more damage. So it'll do 4 instead of 2. So that could be pretty strong, especially if you have a way to somehow get this in without your opponents being able to roll anything in, or you do it after they claim. Let's say they've resolved all their dice, removed all their dice. You then can roll this out. Let's say you roll a character out with this, you hit the special, you then deal 4 damage with that special. I see it doing 2 damage more often than dealing the 4, just because your opponent has to have an empty dice pool to get that benefit. But that is the CR2 Heavy Blaster. We're going to go down the line to our next card. All right, next up we have Blockade. 3-point villain, red villain plot. So after setup, force an opponent to lose 1 resource. So with this, you're going to be building a 27-point team. Your opponent will then be starting the game with 1 resource instead of 2, or with 2 resources instead of 3 if they're using like a profitable connection plot. So this could be a really good counter to profitable connection. So they're building with 3 less points, and it's possible now that plot that they were using will basically get negated because you'll be forcing them to lose the 1 resource they gain from that plot. Again, though, you will be building a 27-point team yourself to be able to do that. So it's obviously going to work better in against a deck that is not using profitable connection, to where your opponent starts the game with just 1 resource, which is going to be really difficult just because a lot of the really good upgrades, stuff like ancient lightsabers and all that, all cost 2. Some of the bigger events are going to be costing at least 2. So your opponents will basically be behind the turn, or will have to use other means to get resources, such as playing maybe an event that gives them resources, or resolving some of their dice for resources where they would have rather resolved it for damage or something else. So that is Blockade. We're going to move into our next card. All right, next up we have Home Turf Advantage. Neutral 2-point red plot. So bring 2 battlefields to the game. During setup, if your battlefield would be chosen for the game, you choose one of your 2 battlefields instead, set the other one aside. So if you see you're playing against like a deck that's going to, they want to use your battlefield, but they're a deck that is running much faster and will be more likely to claim that battlefield, maybe you have this plot to where you can switch it out for a battlefield that will be less impactful if it gets claimed against you. And then it also lets you basically deck build with 2 plots in mind. And then if your opponent wins the roll, or wants to choose your battlefield, you can then swap it out for a different battlefield. Maybe a battlefield that you can switch out basically depending on who you're facing or what deck you're facing. You might have one that's really good against mill, and one that's really good against damage, and then depending on what you're playing, you could use the appropriate battlefield with this plot. That is, if your opponent chooses to, or if you or your opponent choose to use your battlefield. So if they choose to use their battlefield, this plot won't really have any impact. So that is Home Turf Advantage. We're going to move into our next card. All right, next up we have 000 or triple zero or triple O. Not sure how it's pronounced. Um, yellow villain support droid. 2 resources. No blanks on him, which is really nice. So 1 melee, 2 melee, 2 melee for a resource, disrupt, discard, and resource. And after you deal indirect damage to yourself, you may deal 1 indirect damage to an opponent. So really strong with Aphra and BT1. So Aphra will be able to get him out for less. You also be able to get BT1 out for less. So they like say one round you play BT1, the next round maybe you get 000 out and play and drop him in for one less. And his ability synergizes really well with Afra and BT1. So BT1, when you roll him in, you deal one indirect damage to yourself, and then your opponent also gets an indirect damage. So let's say you roll BT1 in, you deal an indirect damage to Afra, you get to draw a card off of that indirect damage. You then deal an indirect damage to your opponent from BT1, and if 000 is in play, since you dealt indirect damage to yourself with BT1, he'll then trigger to deal an additional one indirect damage. So basically, whenever if you have both BT1 in play and 000, when you activate BT1, it'll basically do two indirect damage. It'll do one to yourself, BT1 will do one, and then 000 will do another. Again, no blanks on his die, so he has 3 damage sides, and basically another ability to just deal indirect damage when you deal indirect damage to yourself. So I can see him working really well with Afra and cards like Delve. So you Delve, deal indirect damage to yourself, play the card that Delve lets you play, and then 000 will deal an additional indirect. And then again, we have these 3 damage sides, so 3 melee, 1 of them pay, but he also has a disrupt, a discard, and a resource. Really like that he has no blanks. So that is 000. We're going to move down to our next card. All right, next up we have Trusted Informant. So 9 health for 9 points. Again, that 1-to-1 ratio. This is a yellow hero non-unique character. It's a scoundrel. 2 range damage, 2 indirect damage, discard a resource, +1 resource and blank. And after you activate this character, you may look at an opponent's hand. So you roll it in, look at their hand, kind of formulate a plan for at least the rest of that round because you know exactly what they have in their hand, and then you can maybe like plan your turn according to that. I think this could work really well in draft as well. So let's say you draft this, it's 9 points. You still have 21 other points to build with, so you can use some of the other neutral characters from the draft set. Again, 2 damage sides, so we have the 2 range and the 2 indirect. I think if you were like to do like a draft featuring like all the cards in Destiny, let's say you open this and you open Thrawn, that could be a really strong combination in draft where you roll in Thrawn, and Thrawn being 14 points, this being 9, so you're at 23 points. You then still have, you can drop in like a 6-point or a 7-point character still, but you roll this in, you look at their hand, you then activate Thrawn, already knowing what's in their hand. You're not really taking a gamble on like what the cost of their cards would be because you've already seen them. You then call the number of the card that you want to get rid of the most. You look at their hand, and then they get rid of it. And then, so again, we have the 1-to-1 ratio, so with 9 health and 9 points, 2 damage sides, and a pretty interesting ability to look at their opponent's hand. So that is a Trusted Informant. Let's go down into our next card. All right, next up we have the Arc 170 Starfighter. This is a neutral red support, 3 resources, 2 range damage, 2 range damage, 3 indirect damage, shield, resource, and blank. Vehicle support again. Before the support is discarded from play, you may return it to its owner's hand. So it works with refit, so you can refit it, get it out for less, and then if your opponent plays something like Saboba Always Wins, before it would be discarded from that effect, you are able to return the card to your hand. That is only going to do stuff if like Saboba puts a token on it or something like that, but also if it protects it against ATSC specials to get rid of it. It prevents it from being sabotaged. I mean, your opponent could still play sabotage on it, forcing you to take the card back, and then forcing you to basically pay 3 additional resources in the future to get it out again. But it does prevent it from going to the discard pile, which is really interesting. We have 3 damage sides on it, so we have a 2, and a 3. It could also get you shields and resources, and I really like the ability to basically bounce it to your hand before it would get discarded. So that is the Arc 170. We're going to move into our next card. Just a bit. All right. So now we have the Bardatian Sphere. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, hopefully. 1 resource, upgrade equipment blue villain, discard resource, 2 specials, 2 blanks. Special, discard the top card of the deck. If that card's cost is an odd number, deal 1 damage to a character. So it kind of plays in with Talzin's ability, and it might go well with Talzin decks. But you're getting to mill a card and possibly deal damage. So you're getting rid of a card, which is always good. And then you are, if it is an odd number, you deal 1 damage. And all this for 1 resource, so it could be overwritten later for something more powerful. But it does also have a discard and a resource side on it. And the special is pretty interesting, so you do get rid of the card and possibly deal damage. So we're going to move down into our next card. All right, so next up we have Guardian, Guardian of the Wills. 1 resource. This is a blue hero upgrade title. And as an action, you can exhaust this upgrade to move it to one of your characters. If that character is blue, give it 1 shield. If the character is red, deal 1 indirect damage to an opponent. It feels kind of slow because you're going to have to play it on a character, exhaust it to then use its ability. But I think if you're playing blue-red specifically, you are basically going to be bouncing this card between different characters. So if you're running mostly red, you're still going to need a blue character to at least start with because you won't be able to deck build a deck without blue and using this. So you do need at least like a blue like non-unique character or something. But I do like the ability to exhaust it, move it, deal a damage, exhaust it, move it, possibly get a shield, possibly deal a damage depending on who you're putting it on. So you put it on a blue. If you move it to a blue character, they get a shield. If you move it to a red character, it deals 1 indirect. I think it's like I said, it's pretty slow, but the ability to basically at least once per round move it to a different character and at least get a damage out of it could be interesting. Especially if you have a way to somehow ready the upgrade and move it around multiple times in a round. But currently, basically, it gets exhausted, it gets moved, and then either gets a shield or a damage depending on who you're putting it on. So that is Guardian of the Wills. We're going to move down to our next card. All right, so next up we have Rex's Blaster Pistol. This is a red hero upgrade weapon, legendary, 2 resources. 2 range damage, plus 2 range damage, 2 indirect damage, shield, resource, blank. While this character is on Rex, your copies of it are non-unique. So basically, if it's on Rex, you can play another copy of it. You can play a copy on Rex, you can play a copy on someone else. Actually, I guess you can't. Let me see. While this upgrade is on Rex, your copies of it are non-unique. So basically, you can include 2, so Rex can like dual wield this. I don't know if it becomes unique if you put it on another. If you have, let's say you have one on Rex. If I play one then on a clone trooper, I imagine it's still non-unique because it just says while it is on Rex. So if it's on him, the other copies become non-unique and can maybe go on other characters. But let's say you play both on Rex. He's got some really strong damage on this, so 3 damage sides, a 2 plus a modified, and an indirect. And after you activate the attached character, if you control the battlefield, you may activate one of your characters. So Rex has the ability to basically take control of the battlefield. And let's say you have it on Rex, you activate Rex, you control the battlefield, you can then roll in one of your other characters as well. So I think really strong upgrade. So again, 2 resources, 3 damage sides, an ability to make it non-unique, and an ability that makes it so once the character with it rolls in, you can roll in another character as long as you control the battlefield. So that is going to be a really strong card, I think. Next up, we have the Electropole. So 2 resources. This is a red hero upgrade weapon. 2 melee damage. 2 melee damage for a resource. 2 disrupt. Shield, resource, blank. And before the attached character would be defeated, you may move this upgrade to a Gungan. So if you have it on a, let's say you have it on a, if you're running, obviously you're going to want this in Gungan decks. If the character gets defeated and you don't have any Gungans, it just gets discarded. But if you're playing Gungans, the character, basically maybe the Gungan dies and it leaves it on the battlefield and another Gungan comes and picks it up, basically. It's got some pretty strong sides, so it's got a 2 melee, again a 2 melee for a resource. The 2 disrupt is interesting as well. And all this for 2 resources, and it is basically has a kind of a roundabout redeploy. It's not straight up redeploy because you can just move it to any character. But if you basically have a Gungan, it redeploys to the other Gungan. So that is the Electropole. Into our next card here, we have Flames of the Past. 2 resources, blue neutral event. Discard a card from play if there is a copy of it or a copy of that card in any discard pile. This is really strong. Probably one of my favorite events shown in this set so far. So let's say you're playing a mirror match with like exact same decks. Let's say I have second chance on in my discard pile. Let's say I already used it. My opponent has second chance on their character. I can play Flames of the Past and get rid of their second chance. Or if I have the same support in play that like my opponent has a support in play and I have it in my discard pile, they can make me get rid of that support in play. So um, I think this could also work really well in blue yellow. So it's something like Saw. If you're playing a deck with Saw and you have discarded a card out of your hand that your opponent then has that same card in play, you can use Flames of the Past to get rid of the one that they just played as well. Um, any kind of like weapon that is being used predominantly like across multiple decks that is like a card, like a deck, like a meta weapon. So Ancient Lightsaber. If I have an Ancient Lightsaber in my discard pile, my opponent has one in play. I can play Flames of the Past and get rid of their Ancient Lightsaber. So I think this card is just going to get better and better the more stuff that comes out, the more upgrades that become kind of like auto includes in almost any deck. Like if this was a card in Awakenings, it would be getting rid of holdout blasters like crazy. If this was around with Spirit of Rebellion, it would be discarding Vibro Knives like crazy as well. So Flames of the Past, really cool event, really interesting control card. So you basically, I could even discard something that I know my opponent is going to be playing later, and then when they play it, I can just play Flames of the Past to get rid of it. Let's go down to our next card. We have By Any Means, one resource, Yellow Villain event. Move a die showing a value of 2 or more, then deal 1 indirect damage to yourself. So, really strong effect here. So, it gets rid of any die that is 2 or more. So, if some of these really high damage dice, gets rid of that, gets rid of those dice. And then the downside is you take an indirect damage on yourself. However, if you're playing with Aphra, we have 000 on the card here. You deal 1 indirect damage to Aphra, draw a card, and then 000 will deal an indirect for you having dealt indirect to yourself. So by any means, I like that it gets rid of some of these bigger weapons that are being revealed. So if somebody's got a Dark Saber out, you can pay 1 resource, remove the Dark Saber die, deal it in there, and then deal 1 indirect to yourself. Playing with Aphra, you get that card draw out of it. If you have 000 out, you get that damage, the indirect damage. Let's go down to our next card. We have Machine Replacement, 0 resources. This is a villain red event. Play an upgrade from your hand on a character, then heal 1 damage from that character. So you pay 0. I imagine it's like playing an upgrade, paying its cost. So let's say I pay 0, play a weapon, and then heal a damage. It just doesn't. I know on Quick Draw it was worded as play an upgrade from your hand or a weapon, paying its cost, and that is not present on this card. I'm sure there'll be like a clarification on that, but I imagine you still have to pay the card's cost possibly. But you get a weapon on the character, and then you get a heal 1 damage from it. We're going to go into our next card here. We have No Escape, so 1 resource. This is a blue villain event. Play only if your opponent has no cards in their hand. Deal 2 damage to one of that opponent's characters. So works really well in a mill deck, or if your opponent is just aggressively discarding for rerolls, you can play No Escape and then deal 2 damage to that character. And I love we got this Rogue One artwork on it of the guard basically pounding on the door. Let's go down to our next card. We have Hostile Takeover. This is 2 resources, neutral red event. Play only if you control the battlefield. Choose a symbol showing on one of your dice, then resolve an opponent's die showing that symbol as though or as if it were your own. So if I have a die on ranged damage, my opponent has a die on ranged damage, and I control the battlefield, I pay 2, resolve that die against them. Will probably work really well in Rex decks as he can take control of the battlefield throughout the game. So you take control of the battlefield with him, play this, and then let's say like resolve your opponent's range damage against them as long as you have a die in your pool matching one of theirs, matching the symbol. All right, next up we have Streetwise. 1 resource, it's a support, yellow neutral. Before you play a yellow event, you may exhaust this support to decrease its cost by 1. So we've had some of these like supports for like red, like Tech Team and so on. I like that this does it with events, so I can pay 1, exhaust this, and do something like Never Tell Me the Odds for 2 resources. So that is Streetwise. I think a really strong support, especially with a lot of yellow like events moving dice, so you can basically pay one, exhaust this, and play your entangle or your easy pickings for one less. Next up here we have Division in the Force. One resource, this is a neutral blue event. Resolve one of your blue dice, then remove a die showing the same value as the die you just resolved. So let's say my opponent has, let's say I resolve a special. My opponent has a special as well. I can pay one, resolve my special, then remove my opponent's special. Or let's say I do 2 melee damage. I can pay one, play Division of the Force, deal 2 melee damage, and then remove an opponent's die that also has a 2 on it. It could be a 2 focus, a 2 range, a 2 melee. Doesn't matter as long as the value is 2. So that is Division in the Force. We're going to go down to our next card here. We have First Aid. This is one resource, red hero event. Heal 2 damage from a red character, or 4 instead if it is the first round of the game. So this is going to go really well with something like a Field Medic. So let's say you can get a bunch of healing out with both of them, but pay 1, you're going to heal at least 2 damage, and then if you're doing it in the first round, you get to heal 4. So if your opponent just swung in really aggressively, did a bunch of damage right away in the first round, you can pay 1 resource and heal 4. Outside of that, you could heal at least heal 2, and then you're going to heal up to 4 if it's in the first round. Let's go to our final card here. We have Pacify. 0 resources, blue hero event. Remove a character die, then give that character 2 shields. So let's say I roll in with like Qui-Gon or Obi-Wan or something like that. I roll, let's say, like 2 melee and a blank. I can play Pacify, removing the blank die to give Obi-Wan 2 shields. Could be work really well just to get a little more survivability out, especially against decks that are trying to do damage. I think a lot of decks coming out of this are going to be mill decks. There's a lot of really strong mill with legacies, and Way of the Force has a lot of strong mill, but this will allow you, if you come against an aggressive deck, to remove a character die and then give the character 2 shields. Also works against your opponents too, so you can remove one of your opponent's big dice and then give that character 2 shields. And let's say you're dealing unblockable damage anyway with like Vibro Knife or something, which even though it's been nerfed, it's still a fairly strong card. Remove their die, give them 2 shields, and then resolve some unblockable damage that those shields wouldn't be able to block anyway. So that is Pacify. Again, there'll be a link in the description to where you can check out this imager gallery. I'll be doing more videos. The more and more cards get spoiled and get leaked. So that's going to do it for this video. Remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. We'll see you next time. Thanks again for watching.